Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Today's sponsor is Audible. They're the leading provider of spoken audio and entertainment. Listen to an audiobook wherever and whenever you want. I do. For more information, to get your free trial, go to audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1590 WPSL. Do you think that an educated citizen is the power elite's worst enemy? How do you stay optimistic? How can you hope for the best and still be a realist? The answer is become an impeccable warrior, which is why I've got Gary Stokes on with me now to discuss what you need to do to become impeccable. Gary, welcome back to the Financial Survival Network. How do you become impeccable? How do you become a warrior?
Well, I think it's quite a journey to become a warrior, but I would say for me, and I especially want to clarify this for women in our audience, Kerry, because women, I found, don't love the word warrior. They associate it with, militaristic male aggression. But for me, a warrior is an impeccable man or woman who is at war with his or her own weaknesses. So, for me, we warriors are not at war with our fellow humans or with anything else on this earth. We want to be in harmony with everything, but we are at war with our weaknesses, and so life can be then a joyful process of identifying one's weaknesses and getting rid of them. And finally, then the final goal with all that is awareness. Our weaknesses cloud our awareness and have us. And as long as we have our weaknesses, then we keep coming up with bad explanations for what's happening in our lives, and then we make mistakes.
Yeah, and that's just human nature, isn't it? To not be impeccable, to not identify your weaknesses, and to just march merrily along as if you think you know what you're actually doing when you don't.
Well, attacking our weaknesses, as you know, Kerry, is a very formidable task. Actually, it takes a lot of courage, and here's where I think most people find working on their weaknesses pretty unattractive. It's just so darned hard and painful at points to turn and face yourself and your own bad explanations and come to terms with them and work towards some clarity so that you break free of your mistakes and break free of whatever you've been taught that isn't working anymore.
Right. So it's really a lifelong quest. I remember a book about Benjamin Franklin, and he identified all of his vices, his weaknesses, and he would set up for 30 days a ledger, and every instance where he saw that weakness, one at a time for 30 days, he would write it down, and then he would seek to not indulge in it. And the one that he said was the hardest was basically getting rid of pride or being humble, having humility. He said that was the toughest one. He could never overcome it, but he realized that after a while, the important thing was to appear as if you were humble, appear to have humility, because the appearance of humility was almost as good as being humble.
Yes, I remember that now. I'm glad you brought that up. I remember he said, as soon as I become humble, I'm proud of being humble.
Yeah, and if we tie that into where we are now, we've got these this is the age of the so-called low information voter, and just substitute low information for ignorance, the ignorant voter. You know who you are. You wake up every morning. You think your government is out there taking care of business, assuring your safety, assuring that you'll have an opportunity to succeed, and so many other things. And you and I look at that and we get very cynical, don't we?
Well, no, I don't. You do.
Yeah.
And so here, Kerry, we part company a little bit, but I think it would be really interesting to talk about whether or not cynicism, which is doubting other people's motives, that's what cynicism is, doubting other people's motives, whether that is a path that we can get on and stay happy with. And I think I worry about that. I don't know that it's possible to be completely happy doubting other people's motives as kind of a major theme of my life.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and actually, most of the people I've worked with in my long life, I have not been people whose motives I needed to doubt. I will agree with you for sure that the human race, by and large, is, let's say, insane, and that means that we still are in some state of evolution where a great deal of fear and anger and craziness is the norm. So that's for sure. But in the United States, where I've met most of the people in my life, most of the people that I've met in my life seem to have a basic goodness. They're trying to live a good life, and I've had the great opportunity to work with a lot of people in government at the local and state and federal level, and most of those people I found were pretty smart people, pretty honest people that wanted to do a good job. They're people that are raising their kids, and maybe we screw that up, and we don't do the most brilliant job even of our family work, but most people that I've met are trying to do a good job with those things, and so I question whether or not I could doubt their motives.
Well, I would take issue with you on one thing. It's not so much the motives. Maybe you infer motives from the acts, and I would say I believe that most people are decent and they're doing the best. You're doing the best that you can under the circumstances, but that doesn't mean that you're doing the best that you can, ideally, if you're unaware of your ignorance. And believe me, I'm far from perfect. I'm not even going to go there. But, the cynicism kind of emerges from perhaps a realization, perhaps like H.L. Mencken, who master political satirist, probably the best one ever in the United States, who just finally just says it's just not going to change. It is the way it is, and you better find your own way and not rely upon your desire to see the race enlightened and knowledgeable. You kind of have to just do the best you can under any circumstances as well. And I find for myself, at the end of the day, if I feel I did my best, talking to you, talking to other people, getting information out, that really is its own reward for me. I don't really need to look any further because I know I did my best. So how can I doubt myself?
Oh, well, if you're, in my opinion, what you've just outlined here is a very sane and enlightened perspective on how to operate in this world that we've been talking about. And I don't hear the cynicism in what you just said. I think that I spent 30 years of my life coaching leaders in government and in education, and some of these leaders, as you know, were presidential appointees. So I have really felt in my work pretty close to politics and pretty close to leadership issues in the nation. And one thing for sure I can tell you, cynics are never good leaders. But what you just described, your perspective, seems to me to be a very sane and balanced leadership perspective, that you would get up in the morning and give it your best and to try to be of service. My experience with leaders is that's the way you leaders talk. And it's a very positive thing, and it's it does not make me cynical. It makes me hopeful.
Well, I am hopeful. I do believe that the human race over time has been in an unfolding of consciousness. You can't compare you or I to a caveman who basically eats what he kills with his club, and if he's lucky, they just discovered fire and he gets to cook it. We have very little connection to that pre-civilization individual other than the emotions and the drives and all that are present, and the drive to survive. What's disheartening is I'd like it to happen a lot faster, Gary.
You're impatient, eh?
At times.
Yeah.
At times I've been
but
called
I
that.
think all good leaders are. I think leaders do have that impatience. It's sort of a necessary ingredient, don't you think, to help us get up in the morning and do our work. We would like to move the human agenda, the human evolution forward, and we may know that our own work is folly in a way. We're not going to see anything change very fast, and yet we bring our awareness and our urgency to the work. And if we ask ourselves, well, is our current way of thinking in the United States about our democracy, about capitalism, about the way we live here as the richest nation on earth, a nation perhaps somewhere in decline, is that a legitimate issue for us to be concerned about? And of course the answer is yes. We want the human race to be ever developing, ever evolving, coming up with better and better explanations. And I think that we do all too slowly, as you said. But what drives our own work every day is a sense of urgency about this, which requires that we can't be lazy or lackadaisical or anything else about it. We have to bring our absolute best to it because these are urgent issues. Yeah,
absolutely. And one of the things I'm a big advocate of is being prepared, having a plan. And right after this pause, we're going to talk about that, about planning for the future. I want to welcome our new sponsor, Audible. I've been listening to audiobooks from them for over 5 years now. I am a huge Audible fan. In fact, I've bought multiple platinum memberships. Platinum membership, you buy 25 audiobooks at a time. I just got done listening to the first 3 or 4 books of the Jack Reacher series, the one you probably saw, or maybe you didn't, in the theater, Tom Cruise movie. I mean, just a wonderful book, wonderful series, expertly narrated, and so many times I'm in the car, I get sick of listening to music or news or the radio. I just put my iPod on, plays the book, and makes that trip go by so quickly. To me, this is one of the great things of the information revolution of the internet, is that you can get over 100,000 books on your iPad or iPod or iPhone instantly. Another thing that they have is courses on Audible, the Modern Scholars series. And I've listened to lectures about World War I, Shakespeare, nanotechnology, detective novels. It's so enlightening. To me, Audible is a must-have killer app for the iPhone, the iPad, for my computer, wherever I am. I'm always downloading these books. Like I say, they're a sponsor, so check them out. They've got a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial membership. Just sign up at www.audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, L-U-T-Z. Again, audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. Sign up today. Like I say, this to me is a dream sponsor. These are exactly the types of things that I like to pass on to you because I'm such a fanatical, over-the-top Audible user. 5-6 years I've been listening, hundreds of books. I used to think I was a well-read person, and it's a little strange when somebody asks you, did you read that book? And you have to say, well, somebody actually read it to me, but they actually did a better job than I could have, so I don't mind it. But my friend Sean Perger up in Vancouver, he listens to almost as many as I do, and he can't get enough. I know you're going to love this company, love their service. I do. So check them out. audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. Okay, and we are back. And Gary, what about the concept of making plans? Because I think if you're not a cynic, then you really have to go look and make some plans, because that's really, you have to plan because you know that changes are coming. What's going on today isn't the way it's always going to be. Some changes are minor, some are major, but how do you prepare for change?
Well, I think that cynics are the least likely people to have a plan, because cynics don't really believe that things can be changed. What's forced the cynic back into the position of cynicism, and which is a self-protective wall around ourselves. It's a self-protection to become a cynic, and what's convinced the cynic to become a cynic is having given up on progress. So if you've given up on progress, then you don't create a plan. But I'm completely with you. People who are extremely realistic, let's say well-informed, let's hope that we are, and we understand where the human race is, and we understand that nothing's going to happen fast, and we may be able to come up with a lot of reasons to convince ourselves not to do anything because it looks so hopeless at times, say our political life, and yet, thank heavens, good people resist that cynicism, resist pulling back into this self-protection where all I do is call the world bad names, and instead develop a plan. Okay, well, there are a lot of things to fix. I'm going to work on that thing, whatever it is I decide to devote my life, and I realize how modest my own effort is, and I realize that I'm not taking on the entire set of issues that face us, but only this one, so my own effort seems real modest, and yet I feel I'm on a loving path. I'm a warrior on a loving path if I do develop a plan and devote myself to trying to help the situation evolve to the next level of development.
Yeah, and that leads us back to our present time. We see a massive number of scandals emerging from Washington, D.C., and the cynical side of myself is not surprised about it in the least, because it's back and forth through you head more towards lawlessness, then you go away from it, back to civilization. But we're facing amazing challenges right now, and at least from my eyes, it looks like many of you out there aren't prepared to really confront them and change things. And I guess, when you talk about a cynic believing that things can't be changed, you have to look at yourself, who you are. And if you believe you can't change yourself, then you really can't change anything. So you got to start with an ultimate belief in your own changeability for the better, and then kind of extrapolate that towards society as a whole. Because if you can improve, if you can succeed, if you can accomplish great things, and if you can do your best every day and end the day without regrets, then everyone else can do it too, can't they? Or mostly.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I agree with everything you've said. So then because we are so inundated with negative news about the human race from TV, and we could question a lot about what the media is up to, and on the fringes of it, it's probably not up to any real good thing, but mostly the media is just holding up a mirror, and what we see of ourselves is extremely discouraging, don't you think? We think, oh my God, is this as far as we've got? We are still walking into schools and slaughtering little children. We're still doing innumerable horrible things as a species. And so I love you're getting back to yourself. So who am I? Am I like that? Well, no, I'm not. And so my consciousness, I'm going to make sure my consciousness gets out there every day, as you do with yours. and hope that that loving, generous, and impeccable consciousness is a force for good, which I believe it is. I believe that the cynics will ultimately lose the contest for who's got the best explanation of what's going on. I think the cynic's explanation is weak. It doesn't recognize our evolution. And say, just for now, as you've been doing, Kerry, you're talking about these scandals. Well, we've always had scandals. Are they worse than before? No, they're not. They seem less worse. You know, any student of history can cite the horrors of American life in every decade of it. My God, we were in a civil war not too long ago, and we murdered 660,000 of our fellow citizens and wounded about 2 million of them. And, you know, there isn't anything close to that right now. Not even close.
Yeah, we've made progress, and it's just sometimes you look at where the culture is now, and it just can kind of make you feel a little disheartened or a little sad, really. Not so much for me. I figure I've had a pretty good life. I've been in a position where I've been able to accomplish many of my goals, and I haven't given up trying to find new goals and have new things to turn me on. But you just look at the youth, and it just makes me a little bit sad that the way things are right now, it's going to be harder for them to really, really live a similar life.
Well, do you think that things are worse than they used to be?
It's never that clear cut, is it? A lot of things are better than they've ever been before. You know, reminds me of that Eisenhower quote, things are more like they are now than they've ever been before. You know, whatever that means. But
well, I'd like to toward the end of our interview today, say that quantum physics is giving us, science is giving us a very optimistic view about all this, I believe, because what quantum physics now is saying is that we thought that the universe before, used to think it was this kind of static thing that just kept exploding and doing the same thing over and over. But now they're saying, no, the universe is emerging, and that everything in it is emerging, including human beings. In other words, now this new frame of reference, the human as an emergent being, means that the universe, they say, gives energy, adequate energy, to everything that wants to emerge. And so in this very long-range view of theirs, in emergence, including human emergence, including, in other words, human evolution, is inevitable.
yeah,
In other words, there is not any scenario, they say, where we do not continue to come up with better and better explanations for our reality. And I believe that that's true. And so that view, which I'm reading more and more about that, Kerry, because I feel as I read that stuff, I'm getting closer and closer to a fundamental truth that's based in science. In other words, these guys can prove this stuff. The universe is emerging. We are emerging. Once you believe that that is the fundamental reality of our lives, then you realize that lots of people don't know that, and so they are not emerging, or they're not doing it in any very disciplined way. But there are people on the earth who do understand it, and in my study of those people, they are emerging in a very dynamic way. And that gives me great encouragement and heart.
Yeah,
and I want to be one of those people.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something worth aspiring to. So, quickly, 3 things you could do to become an impeccable warrior without leaving the comfort of your home.
1, take full responsibility for the life you're creating. This is the hard one. You can't blame anybody else for your life. You're doing it. Every single thing you get to take credit for. Nobody's doing anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then second, get on a loving path and stay there, and you'll be protected. Everything good will come from your being on your loving path. And the only trouble you'll have is when you get off it. So you have complete control here on how things turn out.
Great point. Great point.
I think those two are so hard, Kerry. I'll stop there.
All right. If you get to those two, I think you'll give out your contact info, and you can contact Gary, and he'll tell you number 3, the big secret. Okay.
Well, maybe the third one, and people can come to my website to find the answers here. Work on your poise, work on your balance, your composure, and your equanimity, and I'm exploring that world over on my website, thepoisedlife.com.
Excellent.
And if people come over there, they can get a free assessment of their poise.
I love it. So just give me that site again, because I want to pop it up here, put it on my favorites.
Thepoisedlife.com. The Poised Life is all one word, .com.
Mm-hmm.
Has it popped up?
It's popping up right now as we speak, and there it is. And
if people sign in, Kerry, then they immediately get sent this poise assessment, which is very interesting, and it's a great thing to do with your loved ones, your spouse, or something. Do it separately, and then compare your answers.
I love it. I just signed up right now, and I want to take a look at it. And Gary, we're so grateful that you came on the Financial Survival Network. Find out more information about what we're about, surviving and thriving in the new economy. Go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for our newsletter. We don't give you an assessment, but we probably should. And sign up. You get a free newsletter. You get 3 free reports, toolkits, things that are very useful in helping you to survive and thrive in this new economy. You can find us at Twitter at Kerry Lutz, at KerryLutz. And one other thing, we're doing the Liberty Mastermind Symposium in Dallas, June 28th, 29th. It's going to be great. We got 15 incredible speakers. Find it on financialsurvivalnetwork.com or libertymastermind.us. That's libertymastermind.us. And Gary, can't thank you enough for coming on. Breath of fresh air. No matter how things might appear to be bleak and hopeless, it's really in your own mind. It's not really out there, and that's what you have to understand.
Thanks for having me, Kerry. Always a pleasure.
Likewise. This show was brought to you by Audible. When it comes to audiobooks, there's only one place to go. That's audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ. Sign up today, get a free 1-month membership, and a free audiobook. And send us an email. Let us know how you like that book.